Chosen one, OMG. Your soulmate's ex said, "Don't watch this." But you need to know why. My child, listen carefully. Your soulmate's ex once said something that was never meant for your ears: "Don't watch this." But somehow, those words are now sitting directly in front of you. That is not the part you should fear. The real question is why someone from your soulmate's past felt so strongly about keeping this message away from you. What did they know about your connection? What did they see before you ever understood it? And why does this warning feel less like a goodbye and more like a hidden invitation to discover the truth? Before we go deeper, comment, "I am ready," if you feel this message found you at the right moment. There is something unusual about this situation. The warning itself may not be the secret. The secret may be the reason behind the warning. Someone who once knew your soulmate closely may have noticed something that your soulmate could not explain. They may have seen a change in their behavior. They may have heard a sentence that made them pause. They may have realized that your name carried an emotional weight they had never seen before. And that is where everything becomes interesting. Because your soulmate's ex did not simply say, "Move on." They said, "Don't watch this." Those words suggest that something was revealed, recorded, remembered, or understood. Something they believed you should never see. Yet sometimes the thing people try hardest to hide becomes the very thing that exposes their deepest truth. My child, listen carefully. Imagine your soulmate sitting alone after a conversation that changed their perspective. They are looking at their phone, but they are not really seeing the screen. Their mind keeps returning to one person. You. They may have tried to dismiss the feeling. They may have told themselves it was only curiosity. They may have called it coincidence. But something inside them kept bringing your name back. Then their ex noticed. That is the first hidden layer. The ex may have recognized the emotional shift before your soulmate admitted it. They may have noticed that your soulmate became quieter when your name appeared. They may have noticed a sudden smile after reading something from you. They may have noticed that old memories no longer carried the same power. That realization can be uncomfortable for someone from the past. Because when an old connection realizes it no longer controls the heart, silence becomes difficult. Something changes. And according to the spiritual guidance surrounding this message, the warning may represent resistance to a truth that is already becoming visible. It does not mean every detail is guaranteed. It means there may be a deeper emotional pattern asking you to pay attention. Your soulmate's ex may have seen a side of them that you have never seen. They may know the habits, fears, defenses, and emotional patterns your soulmate developed over time. So when they noticed something different, they may have understood its meaning immediately. They may have realized that this was not another temporary distraction. This felt different. And that realization could explain the warning. Don't watch this. Why would someone say that? Perhaps because the message contains something your soulmate once tried to hide. Perhaps it reveals a moment when your soulmate finally admitted that they still think about you. Perhaps it exposes a private realization that surprised even them. But there is another possibility. The ex may have wanted you to misunderstand what you saw. Stay with me, because this changes the entire meaning of the warning. Sometimes a person from the past does not want to lose emotional influence. They may recognize that your presence represents a new beginning. Instead of accepting that shift, they may create confusion. They may make you question what is real. They may encourage you to focus on the wrong detail. But the spiritual lesson here is powerful. Do not let another person's fear become your truth. My child, listen carefully. You are not being asked to chase anyone. You are not being asked to force a confession. You are being invited to observe what the situation is teaching you. The strongest revelation may come when you stop trying to control the outcome. There is a reason the title says, but you need to know why. The why matters more than the warning. The warning could be jealousy. It could be fear. It could be embarrassment. It could even be an attempt to protect someone from an emotional truth they are not ready to face. But there is one detail you should notice. If the ex truly wanted the message to disappear, why mention it at all? That question opens another door. By telling someone not to watch something, they create curiosity. They make the hidden thing more powerful. They place attention exactly where they claimed it should not go. And now you are standing at that exact doorway. Do not skip this message. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next layer concerns your soulmate, not the ex. Your soulmate may have been caught between what they believed they should feel and what they actually felt. The past may have taught them to protect their heart. Your presence may have challenged that protection without you even realizing it. Maybe they started comparing old memories with new possibilities. Maybe they began asking themselves why your connection felt so different. Maybe they realized that the person they thought they needed was not the person who truly understood them. That can create a powerful emotional conflict. The ex represents what was familiar. You represent what remains unknown. And people often fear what they cannot control. There may have been a moment when your soulmate saw something connected to you and suddenly understood why the past had never completely satisfied them. It could have been a simple message. A photograph. A familiar phrase. A memory triggered at the perfect moment. Nothing dramatic had to happen. Sometimes one small moment exposes a truth that years of thinking could not reveal. That is why the warning feels important. It may be connected to a realization your soulmate never expected to have. And here is where you must listen closely. The message is not telling you to become obsessed with what the ex said. It is telling you to understand what the warning represents. There may be an emotional boundary between the past and the future. Someone from the past may be trying to hold on to a narrative that your soulmate has already begun questioning. Your soulmate may not have spoken openly yet. But silence does not always mean absence of feeling. Sometimes silence means someone is trying to understand what they feel before they speak. My child, listen carefully. There is another clue hidden inside the phrase, "Don't watch this." The ex may have believed that once you saw the truth, you would understand everything differently. That means the real fear may not be that you watch. The real fear may be what you realize after watching. You may see that your soulmate was not confused about you. They were confused about their past. You may see that the hesitation was never about your worth. It was about their readiness. And you may discover that the ex was reacting to a change they could already sense. This is where the emotional tension becomes deeper. Because sometimes the person warning you is accidentally revealing themselves. Their urgency exposes their concern. Their concern exposes their attachment. And their attachment reveals that something has shifted. Something is no longer the same. Your soulmate may be slowly stepping outside an old emotional pattern. They may be learning that love cannot be built from fear, guilt, or comparison. They may be realizing that a genuine connection should not require constant confusion. And if this message resonates with you, do not rush ahead mentally. Let the next revelation come naturally. Because the most surprising part may not be what the ex said. It may be what your soulmate did immediately after hearing it. That reaction could reveal more than any warning ever could. My child, listen carefully. The answer you are seeking may already be closer than you think. But before the truth becomes clear, one final question remains. What exactly did the ex see that made them say, "Don't watch this"? That question is where the next revelation begins. My child, listen carefully. The moment your soulmate's ex said, "Don't watch this," something much deeper may have been happening behind the scenes. You were not supposed to understand the meaning immediately. You were supposed to notice the warning first. Then you were supposed to ask why. And that question is exactly where this hidden emotional story begins to unfold. There was likely a moment when your soulmate's ex realized that something had changed. It may have been small at first. Maybe your soulmate stopped reacting to old memories the same way. Maybe they stopped bringing up the past. Maybe they started protecting their private thoughts more carefully. The ex may have noticed that their attention was slowly moving somewhere else. And that somewhere else may have been toward you. Think about that for a moment. Someone from your soulmate's past may have recognized your importance before your soulmate was ready to admit it. That is why the warning carries so much emotional weight. The ex was not simply talking about a video or a message. In the spiritual reflection connected to this story, the warning represents a fear of what could become visible once the hidden layer is finally seen. My child, listen carefully. Your soulmate may have been carrying two completely different emotional worlds inside them. One world belonged to memories, old expectations, and familiar patterns. The other world began forming around a connection that felt harder to explain. You may have entered that second world without realizing it. Your presence may have challenged beliefs your soulmate had carried for a long time. They may have wondered why your name stayed in their thoughts. They may have questioned why certain conversations with you felt different. They may have tried to convince themselves that they were simply curious. But curiosity usually fades when there is nothing meaningful underneath it. This did not seem to fade. Instead, it may have grown quietly. That is what the ex may have noticed. And once they noticed it, they may have become uncomfortable. There is another clue hiding here. The ex knew your soulmate's old emotional language. They knew how your soulmate behaved when they were interested in someone. They knew how they acted when they were uncertain. They knew how they reacted when something truly mattered. So when your soulmate started acting differently around your name, the difference may have been impossible to ignore. The ex could have seen a softness that was not there before. They could have noticed hesitation before your soulmate answered certain questions. They could have heard your name spoken with a different kind of emotion. These details may sound ordinary. But sometimes ordinary moments reveal extraordinary changes. Stay with me. The warning becomes even more interesting when you understand who said it. If the person had no emotional connection to your soulmate anymore, why would they care what you watched? Why would your reaction matter to them? Why would they feel the need to interfere with information connected to you? That question creates another possibility. Maybe they were afraid that you would see how your soulmate really felt. Maybe they knew your soulmate had said something privately that contradicted the image they had been showing publicly. Maybe they had witnessed a moment when your soulmate finally admitted something they had been avoiding. And perhaps that admission was connected directly to you. This does not mean every hidden event should be treated as a confirmed fact. Spiritual messages are invitations to reflect, not proof of another person's private thoughts. But the emotional pattern here is powerful. The past may be reacting because something about the present feels different. My child, listen carefully. There may have been one particular moment that made the ex realize they were losing their emotional influence. It could have happened during a simple conversation. Your soulmate may have mentioned your name without realizing how much emotion was attached to it. The ex may have asked a casual question. Your soulmate may have given a short answer. But that short answer could have revealed everything. Sometimes people notice what someone avoids saying more than what they actually say. Maybe your soulmate suddenly changed the subject. Maybe they looked away. Maybe they became unusually quiet. Maybe they tried to act completely normal. But the attempt to appear normal may have made the situation even more obvious. The ex may have understood that your soulmate was protecting something. And that something could have been their feelings about you. This is where the phrase, "Don't watch this," becomes almost symbolic. It may represent the fear of exposure. The fear that one small piece of evidence could connect all the other pieces. The fear that you would finally see why your soulmate has been acting differently. But there is something else you need to understand. Your soulmate may not have wanted the ex to know either. They may have been trying to keep their emotional world private because they were still figuring it out. They may have feared making the wrong choice. They may have feared disappointing someone. They may have feared admitting that their heart was moving beyond an old chapter. Sometimes people delay honesty because honesty forces them to make decisions. And decisions can change everything. That may explain why your soulmate remained quiet. It may also explain why the ex became more alert. The more your soulmate tried to hide the change, the more obvious the change became. There is a strange truth about emotional situations. What people try hardest to conceal can sometimes become the easiest thing to notice. Your soulmate may have thought they were keeping everything under control. But their silence may have spoken for them. Their reactions may have spoken for them. Their sudden changes may have spoken for them. And the ex may have been listening carefully. My child, listen carefully. What if the thing you were warned not to watch was not actually about the ex at all? What if it was about a moment involving your soulmate where the past finally realized it could not compete with what was happening inside them? That possibility changes the entire story. The ex would not simply be protecting a secret. They would be protecting themselves from seeing a truth they were not ready to accept. They may have been afraid of watching your soulmate choose a different emotional direction. They may have been afraid of seeing your soulmate acknowledge what they had been denying. They may have been afraid of realizing that the connection they once believed was permanent had become part of the past. That is a painful realization for anyone. But it can also become the beginning of something more honest. Your soulmate may have reached a point where old emotional habits no longer felt right. They may have started recognizing the difference between familiarity and genuine connection. They may have realized that history alone does not determine the future. And perhaps your presence became the mirror that helped them see that difference. You did not have to convince them. You did not have to compete. You did not have to prove your value. Your existence in their emotional world may have been enough to make them question what they once accepted without question. That is why the ex's warning feels so significant. It may have come at the exact moment when an old story was beginning to lose its power. Now think about what happens when someone senses they are losing control of a situation. They may become more vocal. They may offer warnings. They may tell others what to believe. They may emphasize certain details while hiding others. They may try to shape the story before someone else discovers the full picture. But there is a problem with that strategy. The more someone tries to control what another person sees, the more curious that person becomes. And that curiosity may lead directly to the truth. Do not skip this message. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. Because the next clue is not about what the ex wanted you to see. It is about what they desperately did not want you to notice. My child, listen carefully. There may have been a specific detail in the hidden message that connected your soulmate's past to their present. It could have been a name. It could have been a sentence. It could have been a reaction that happened when your soulmate realized the ex was talking about you. Imagine the moment. The ex mentions your name. Your soulmate becomes quiet. The room feels different. The conversation suddenly stops feeling casual. Your soulmate may have tried to hide their reaction, but the ex noticed it immediately. That reaction could have been enough to confirm something the ex had already suspected. Your soulmate cared. Not casually. Not temporarily. Something deeper was developing. And once the ex realized that, the warning became necessary from their perspective. They may have believed that if you saw the full context, you would understand exactly where your soulmate's heart was moving. But here is the part that may surprise you. Your soulmate may have also been afraid that you would see it. They may have been worried that you would notice how much you mattered before they were ready to say it openly. They may have feared that their silence would be misunderstood. They may have wondered whether you would believe them after everything that happened. So both sides could have been hiding something. The ex was hiding fear. Your soulmate was hiding uncertainty. And you were standing in the middle without knowing the full story. That is why this message found you now. Not to make you chase answers, but to help you understand the emotional pattern. Sometimes the most important revelation is not a confession. It is the realization that someone has been fighting an internal battle you never knew existed. Your soulmate may have been deciding whether to remain loyal to an old emotional identity or finally accept that they had changed. The ex may have represented the person your soulmate used to be. You may represent the person they are becoming. That does not guarantee an outcome. But it does reveal why the warning could carry such emotional intensity. And there is still one unanswered question. What exactly did your soulmate say or do that made the ex realize this connection was becoming impossible to ignore? Because that moment may contain the clue that explains why you were told not to watch. The next revelation goes deeper than the warning itself. It may show why your soulmate could no longer pretend that nothing had changed. My child, listen carefully. You are closer to the hidden meaning now than you were when this message began. But do not assume the ex was the only person keeping something hidden. Your soulmate may have been hiding the most important part of all. My child, listen carefully. There is a moment in every hidden emotional story when the silence becomes louder than the words. That moment may be closer than you realize. Your soulmate's ex said, "Don't watch this," but the deeper mystery is what happened immediately before those words were spoken. Something may have been revealed through a reaction, a hesitation, or a sentence that your soulmate never expected anyone to notice. And now the question becomes much more powerful. What did the ex see that made them feel you should never know the full truth? Do not rush past this moment. The answer may completely change how you understand everything that came before it. My child, listen carefully. Your soulmate may have reached a point where pretending became harder than admitting the truth to themselves. They may have continued living normally on the outside. They may have answered questions casually. They may have smiled when expected. They may have acted as if nothing unusual was happening. But internally, something was shifting. Your presence may have become impossible to ignore. It may have happened through small moments rather than one dramatic event. Maybe they remembered something you once said. Maybe they noticed how peaceful they felt after speaking with you. Maybe they suddenly realized. They were comparing your connection with everything they had experienced before. That comparison could have created a question they could no longer escape. Why does this feel different? That question may have been the beginning of the entire change. The ex may have noticed the difference before your soulmate fully understood it. This is important. People who have shared a meaningful past often recognize changes in behavior very quickly. They know the familiar expressions. They know the usual responses. They know when someone is pretending to be fine. So when your soulmate began behaving differently, the ex may have sensed it immediately. Perhaps the ex asked, "What is going on with you lately?" Perhaps your soulmate dismissed the question. Perhaps they simply said they were tired. But the answer may not have matched their expression. There may have been something in their eyes that gave away what their words were hiding. The ex may have understood that there was another person occupying their thoughts. And when they eventually discovered that person was you, the emotional atmosphere changed. Suddenly, the warning made more sense. Don't watch this. Why say that? Maybe because the ex had seen a moment they could not explain away. Maybe they had watched your soulmate react to your name with genuine emotion. Maybe they had noticed that your soulmate no longer became defensive when the subject of you appeared. Instead, they became thoughtful. That difference can say a lot. Before, your soulmate may have tried to deny everything. Now, they may have simply gone quiet. Silence can sometimes reveal acceptance. My child, listen carefully. There is another layer you need to understand. Your soulmate may have been protecting you from the confusion surrounding their past, even if they never said so directly. They may have known that their history was complicated. They may have known that old emotions could create unnecessary questions. They may have wanted to approach you with clarity instead of bringing old confusion into something new. But waiting for perfect clarity can become its own form of delay. Your soulmate may have kept waiting for the perfect moment. The perfect conversation. The perfect explanation. The perfect sign that it was safe to speak. Meanwhile, the ex may have been watching everything from the outside. They may have noticed that your soulmate was emotionally moving forward. That could have made them uncomfortable. The ex may have realized that the past was losing its influence. And once someone feels that shift, they may react in unexpected ways. They may become protective of old memories. They may question new connections. They may try to make the other person doubt what they feel. But your soulmate may have started seeing through that pattern. Something changed inside them. They may have begun asking whether their loyalty to the past was actually loyalty, or simply fear of change. That question can be difficult. It can force someone to examine years of emotional decisions. It can make them realize they stayed in certain patterns because those patterns were familiar. Then someone new enters their emotional world, and suddenly familiarity no longer feels like enough. That may be where your connection became important. Not because you rescued them. Not because you forced anything. But because your presence may have shown them another way to experience emotional connection. You may have represented calm where they expected confusion. Understanding where they expected judgment. Honesty where they expected hesitation. And that contrast may have become impossible to ignore. Stay with me, because this is where the hidden message becomes much more personal. There may have been a conversation between your soulmate and their ex where your name appeared unexpectedly. The ex may have asked whether your soulmate was still thinking about you. Your soulmate may have tried to answer quickly. But something about the answer may have exposed the truth. Maybe they said they were not sure. Maybe they said they did not want to talk about it. Maybe they simply became quiet. That reaction could have told the ex more than a direct confession. The ex may have realized that your soulmate was not indifferent. They were conflicted. And conflict often appears when the heart and the old expectations are moving in different directions. The ex may have wanted to know whether there was still a chance for the past. Your soulmate may have realized that answering honestly would close a door they had once kept slightly open. That could have been the emotional turning point. Your soulmate may have finally understood that keeping every door open was preventing them from walking toward anything new. My child, listen carefully. This is not a message telling you to assume someone else's private thoughts as facts. It is a spiritual reflection about patterns, emotions, and the meaning we sometimes find in uncertain situations. And the pattern here points toward one central idea. Something from the past may have become threatened by something from the present. The warning may have been an attempt to control what you discovered. But the more important question is why your discovery mattered so much. If there was nothing meaningful to hide, why would anyone care whether you watched? That question keeps returning because it is the key. Perhaps the ex feared that you would finally understand your soulmate's reaction. Perhaps they feared that you would notice how different your soulmate became after meeting you. Perhaps they feared that a hidden message would reveal that your soulmate had emotionally moved beyond the past. And maybe that is what made the warning so urgent. Think about the difference between hiding a secret and hiding a reaction. A secret can remain buried. A reaction happens naturally. You cannot always control your face, your voice, your silence, or the way your attention changes. Your soulmate may have tried to keep their feelings private. Yet the ex may have noticed those tiny reactions anyway. That could be why the warning was directed toward you. The ex may have known that once you saw the moment, you would recognize something your soulmate had not yet said aloud. Something that had been visible through behavior. Something that could not easily be explained away. Do not skip this message. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There is still another piece of this puzzle. The ex may not have been warning you because they wanted to protect you. They may have been warning you because they were afraid of what you would realize about them. Your soulmate's past may have contained a story that made them look more important than they actually were in the present. Perhaps the ex had always believed they would remain emotionally significant. Perhaps they assumed your soulmate would eventually return to what was familiar. But then you appeared in their thoughts, and the old assumption began to weaken. That can create insecurity. And insecurity can make people say things they would not normally say. "Don't watch this" could have been an emotional reaction disguised as advice. It may have sounded protective, but underneath it could have been fear. Fear of being replaced. Fear of being forgotten. Fear that your soulmate had finally understood what they truly wanted. Your soulmate may have sensed that fear too. And perhaps that is why they did not immediately defend the ex. Instead, they may have remained silent. That silence may have been misunderstood. But internally, they could have been realizing that the past was asking for a place it no longer naturally held. My child, listen carefully. There is a beautiful lesson hidden inside this tension. You do not need to compete with someone from the past. You do not need to prove that you are better. You do not need to convince your soulmate that your connection matters. If something genuine is developing, it should eventually be recognized through choices, honesty, and consistent behavior. The past can make noise. The present can remain quiet. But eventually, actions reveal direction. And your soulmate may have reached a point where their actions began telling a different story than their old history. This may be why the ex became so concerned. They were watching someone they once knew become emotionally different. They were watching your soulmate question old beliefs. They were watching them protect something new. And that new emotional space may have included you. There may have been one final moment that made everything undeniable. Your soulmate may have been asked to choose how they wanted to respond when your name came up. Instead of dismissing you, they may have defended your character. Instead of changing the subject, they may have admitted that they cared about what happened to you. Instead of pretending you were unimportant, they may have acknowledged that you mattered. That single reaction could have changed the entire conversation. The ex may have realized that your soulmate was no longer speaking from the same emotional place. The old story had changed. And that is when the warning may have appeared. Don't watch this. But now you understand something important. The warning itself may have been the clue. It may have shown that something was being protected, not because it was meaningless, but because it carried emotional weight. My child, listen carefully. There is still one deeper question waiting ahead. If your soulmate's ex was afraid of what you would discover, then what exactly did your soulmate do that made the ex so certain you would understand? The answer may involve a choice your soulmate made when nobody expected them to choose you. And that choice could reveal why the warning reached you in the first place. What comes next changes everything, because the hidden message may not simply explain your soulmate's feelings. It may explain why the past suddenly became so desperate to keep you from seeing the truth. My child, listen carefully. The moment is finally becoming clearer, because the warning from your soulmate's ex may have been connected to a choice your soulmate made when nobody expected it. Until now, you have been looking at the warning as a mystery. But now, look at it as a reaction. Someone saw something they did not want you to understand. Someone realized that your soulmate was no longer responding to the past in the same way. And that realization may have created the sentence that started everything, "Don't watch this." There may have been a private moment when your soulmate was forced to face a simple question. What do you really want now? That question can become uncomfortable when the past has been familiar for a long time. Your soulmate may have known what was expected from them. They may have known what the ex wanted to hear. But knowing what someone expects does not always mean you can honestly give it to them. Something inside your soulmate may have changed. They may have realized that pretending was becoming exhausting. They may have realized that keeping old emotions alive was preventing them from understanding new ones. And then your name entered the picture again. My child, listen carefully. Your name may have appeared during a conversation that seemed ordinary at first. The ex may have asked about you. Your soulmate may have tried to keep their response simple. But their reaction may have revealed more than their words. Maybe their voice became softer. Maybe they paused before answering. Maybe they smiled without realizing it. Maybe they became protective when the ex made an unfair assumption about you. That small reaction may have been the moment the ex understood that something had changed. They were not hearing indifference. They were hearing emotion. They were seeing attachment. They were seeing someone who had begun to care in a different way. That can be difficult for a person from the past to accept. The ex may have wanted your soulmate to remain emotionally connected to an old version of their life. But your soulmate may have started questioning whether that version still belonged to them. This is where the warning becomes more meaningful. The ex may have believed that if you saw the entire situation, you would immediately recognize your importance. They may have feared that you would understand why your soulmate had become distant from old patterns. They may have feared that the hidden message would reveal something your soulmate had not yet said directly. And perhaps that is exactly what made the warning so urgent. Do not skip this message. Stay till the end. Something huge is waiting for you. There is another detail you should notice. The ex did not say that you should forget your soulmate. They did not simply say that nothing was happening. Instead, they focused on what you should not watch. That is a very different kind of statement. It places attention on information. It suggests that something visible could change your understanding. Perhaps there was a recording. Perhaps there was a message. Perhaps there was a conversation that captured your soulmate at a vulnerable emotional moment. Whatever the situation represents, the deeper spiritual lesson is about seeing beyond appearances. Your soulmate may have been presenting one version of themselves publicly while privately processing another truth. That does not mean they were intentionally deceiving you. Sometimes people hide from their own emotions before they hide them from others. Your soulmate may have needed time to understand what was happening inside them. They may have been afraid of making promises before they felt ready. They may have been afraid that speaking too soon would create expectations. So they stayed quiet. But the ex may have noticed the silence and interpreted it differently. The ex may have thought silence meant uncertainty about you. Instead, it may have meant your soulmate was protecting something precious while they figured out how to express it. My child, listen carefully. There is a powerful difference between someone who does not care and someone who is afraid of caring deeply. One walks away easily. The other may hesitate because the emotional consequences feel important. Your soulmate may have been in that second position. They may have wondered what would happen if they admitted that you mattered. They may have wondered whether you felt the same way. They may have worried about their past interfering with their future. They may have questioned whether they deserved another chance at something meaningful. These thoughts can create hesitation even when feelings are genuine. The ex may have mistaken that hesitation for weakness. But your soulmate may have been preparing for honesty. That preparation could have been the very thing the ex noticed. Perhaps your soulmate started setting boundaries. Perhaps they stopped explaining every decision to the ex. Perhaps they stopped responding to old emotional pressure. Perhaps they began choosing peace over familiar arguments. These actions may have seemed small. But together, they could represent a major internal shift. The past was losing its ability to define the present. And your connection may have been one reason they noticed that change. This is not about proving that one person is better than another. It is about recognizing when someone begins choosing based on who they are becoming, rather than who they used to be. The ex may have seen that transformation happening. That could explain the fear behind the warning. If you watched the hidden moment, you might understand that your soulmate was no longer emotionally standing where they once stood. They had moved. Quietly, carefully, but noticeably. My child, listen carefully. There may also be something the ex did not understand. They may have believed your soulmate was choosing you because of a temporary emotional reaction. But your soulmate may have been responding to something much deeper. They may have recognized qualities in you that they had been missing for a long time. Patience, understanding, emotional safety, genuine attention, a feeling of being seen without needing to perform. Those qualities can make a person question old relationships in unexpected ways. Suddenly, what once seemed normal can feel incomplete. What once seemed acceptable can feel limiting. And what once felt like home can begin feeling like a chapter that has already ended. That realization can be painful. But it can also be freeing. Your soulmate may have started accepting that moving forward does not mean disrespecting the past. It simply means refusing to remain trapped inside it. And if the ex reacted strongly, perhaps they sensed that change before your soulmate openly explained it. The warning may have been their final attempt to control the story. But the story may already have been changing. My child, listen carefully. The most important thing for you now is not to chase the hidden message. It is to understand what the warning reveals about emotional truth. If someone feels threatened by what you might discover, then your discovery may matter more than their warning. You are being invited to remain calm. You are being invited to let actions speak. You are being invited to notice consistency instead of becoming trapped by one dramatic statement. Because the real revelation is not simply that your soulmate may still think about you. The deeper revelation is that someone from their past may have noticed the same shift before you did. And that means the warning may have been less about protecting you and more about protecting an old story from being exposed. Something is changing. Something is being understood. And the next revelation may finally explain what your soulmate saw in you that made them stop looking backward. The answer may be more emotional than you expected. It may reveal why the ex became so uncomfortable when your name entered the conversation. And when that final clue appears, you may understand why those 5 words were spoken in the first place. Don't watch this. My child, listen carefully. You have reached the moment where the warning finally begins to reveal its deeper meaning. Your soulmate's ex said, "Don't watch this," but perhaps the most important part was never the message itself. It was the fear behind those words. Someone may have realized that once you understood what was happening, you would no longer see your soulmate's silence the same way. You would understand why they hesitated. You would understand why they pulled away from certain conversations. You would understand why the past suddenly seemed less powerful than before. And most importantly, you would understand why your name continued appearing in their thoughts. My child, listen carefully. The hidden truth may be that your soulmate was already beginning to separate emotionally from an old chapter. They may not have announced it. They may not have explained it. They may not even have completely understood it themselves. But their actions may have started changing. They may have become more protective of their peace. They may have stopped responding to old emotional patterns. They may have stopped allowing the past to decide what they should feel today. That shift could have been exactly what the ex noticed. Perhaps the ex saw your soulmate looking at something connected to you. Perhaps they noticed a sudden change in their expression. Perhaps your soulmate became quiet when your name was mentioned. Maybe they smiled. Maybe they looked thoughtful. Maybe they simply refused to speak negatively about you. Those small reactions may have revealed something powerful. Your soulmate cared about how you were seen. That matters. Because when someone truly becomes emotionally detached, they usually do not need to defend what no longer matters to them. But your soulmate may have felt a need to protect your image. They may have felt a need to explain that you were not what the past wanted them to believe. And that could have been the moment when the ex realized they were facing something they could no longer dismiss. My child, listen carefully. The ex may have expected your soulmate to eventually return to familiar emotions. They may have believed that history would always have the strongest influence. But then something changed. Your soulmate began thinking about the future instead of constantly revisiting the past. They began asking different questions. They may have asked themselves what kind of connection brings peace. They may have wondered who truly understands them. They may have questioned why they felt lighter after speaking with you. Those questions can quietly transform a person. Nothing dramatic needs to happen. Sometimes a person simply wakes up one day and realizes that what they once called love was partly habit, fear, or attachment to memories. Then they recognize something new. They realize that a meaningful connection should allow them to become more honest, more peaceful, and more themselves. Your presence may have helped them notice that difference. Not because you forced anything, but because your connection gave them something to reflect upon. That is why the ex may have become uncomfortable. They were not only losing a person from the past. They may have been losing the story they had built around that person. And when an old story begins falling apart, people sometimes try to protect it. Don't watch this. It may have been an attempt to keep that old story alive. But the warning itself may have made the truth harder to hide. Stay with me until the end, because there is one final emotional layer you need to understand. Your soulmate may have discovered that choosing peace sometimes means disappointing people who benefited from their confusion. That realization can be difficult. They may have spent a long time trying to keep everyone comfortable. They may have avoided difficult conversations. They may have delayed decisions. They may have stayed silent because silence seemed easier than explaining their heart. But eventually, silence becomes its own answer. Your soulmate may have realized that they could not continue living according to someone else's expectations. And perhaps you became connected to that realization. You may have represented a possibility they were afraid to explore. A possibility that required honesty. A possibility that required them to stop looking backward. My child, listen carefully. This does not mean you should assume a guaranteed future with anyone. It means you should recognize the emotional lesson within the story. You cannot control another person's choices. You cannot force someone to communicate. You cannot make the past disappear. But you can choose not to let someone else's warning steal your peace. If the connection is genuine, clarity will eventually come through consistent actions. If your soulmate truly values you, their behavior will eventually speak louder than the ex's warning. And if the situation is meant to move forward, it should not require you to chase every hidden clue. You deserve honesty. You deserve peace. You deserve a connection where you do not constantly have to wonder what someone really means. That may be the greatest revelation in this entire message. The warning was never supposed to make you afraid. It was supposed to make you look deeper. It was supposed to make you question the story you were given. It was supposed to remind you that another person's perspective does not define your connection. The ex may know the past. They do not own the future. Your soulmate may have memories with them. But memories do not automatically decide tomorrow. And you should never measure your worth against someone who came before you. My child, listen carefully. There may have been a moment when your soulmate finally understood why you affected them differently. They may have realized that you did not demand that they become someone else. You simply made them notice who they were becoming. That realization can be deeply emotional. It can make someone rethink old choices. It can make them question old patterns. It can make them understand why certain connections never felt complete. And perhaps that is what the ex saw. They saw your soulmate changing. They saw their attention moving. They saw the emotional center shifting. They saw that your name no longer sounded like a passing thought. It carried meaning. That may be why they wanted you to look away. But you do not need to look away from your own truth. You simply need to look at it with wisdom. Do not chase the warning. Do not chase the ex. Do not chase hidden evidence. Instead, watch the actions that come next. Watch for honesty. Watch for consistency. Watch for respect. Watch for communication that does not leave you constantly confused. Those are the signs that truly matter. And if this message reached you at a meaningful moment, take a quiet breath and remember this. You are not here to compete with anyone. You are not here to prove that you are worthy. You are not here to beg someone to recognize your value. Your value existed before this story began. The ex may have said, "Don't watch this," but perhaps you needed to understand why. The reason may be simple beneath all the mystery. Someone from the past may have realized that your soulmate was beginning to see the present differently. They may have realized that an old emotional story was losing its power. They may have realized that your soulmate could no longer pretend that nothing had changed. And perhaps the greatest surprise is that the warning itself became the clue. My child, listen carefully. If you remember only one thing from this message, remember this. Never allow another person's fear to become the voice that defines your future. Let truth reveal itself through actions. Let time expose what words try to hide. Let peace guide your decisions. If your soulmate is meant to step closer, let them do so with honesty and courage. You do not have to force the door open. You only need to remain grounded enough to recognize what is real when it arrives. What was hidden may eventually become clear. What was confusing may eventually make sense. And what once felt like a warning may become the moment that helped you understand the entire situation differently. So if this message spoke directly to your heart, comment, "I choose clarity," below. Let that be your reminder that you choose peace over confusion, truth over fear, and self-respect over endless guessing. If you felt that this message found you at exactly the right moment, share it with someone who may need these words today. And if you want more messages about divine guidance, soulmate energy, emotional revelations, and signs that encourage reflection, subscribe to the channel and stay connected. My child, you were never meant to lose yourself while trying to understand someone else. Keep your heart open, but keep your wisdom awake. The warning may have said, "Don't watch this," but you were meant to understand why. And now you know the deeper lesson. Sometimes the thing someone tries to hide does not reveal your weakness. It reveals what they are afraid you will finally understand. Stay grounded. Stay patient. Stay open to truth. And above all, remember your worth. Type Amen.